everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Adrielle and today I am very excited because I will be talking about the book The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson in today's Rant or Rave book review. And yes, I do have this book, but I don't have it with me right now, so we're gonna stick to the digital thing happening over here on this side of the screen. I'm sorry. It wouldn't have made a difference in the quality of the video anyway, so I don't think anybody cares but me. Just me being super picky about everything. So basically, if you have not seen one of my rant or rave videos, there are 4 things that I look at when I'm talking about rating a book. And those things are the characters, the plot, the setting, and the pacing. And I rate all of those things, and then at the end, I bring them all together for a overall score so that I have, like, you get what I'm saying. So I just kind of want to go ahead and start. Like, I don't really want to beat around the bush too much longer. Let's dive right in and talk about the characters in this book. Okay, I'm gonna talk about like a few of the main characters. There are a lot of characters in this book, and there are 4 main characters, but one of them in particular, he doesn't make that big of a presence in the book, so I'm not going to talk about him. I think he's going to be a bigger person in book 2, and so I'm just not going to talk about him in this one. There's only a couple chapters with him in it, even though, we're not going to talk about him. It's fine. No disrespect, no shade, I'm just saying. Let's talk about like my favorite character out of the entire book. First of all, I love Dalinar and Kaladin. There are Dalinar and there's Kaladin. I love them both. And there's also a character named Shalyn. I love her so much. It's been so long since I've read a book where I loved the characters in the way that I love these characters. Like, you guys, they feel like real people. Like, they're so complex and so diverse, and I love the way that they struggle with morality, and they're just good people. Like, especially Kaladin and Dalinar, like, they're very good people. Like, you can see them trying in every situation to make the best decision. Like, people like that they're amazing. I love people who just, like, they go out of their way, they inconvenience themselves, they'll throw themselves underneath the bus to save other people. Like, that's kind of their whole thing. And it doesn't take you very long as a reader to figure that out. As a matter of fact, that's clear within the first like 5 pages that that's just who they are. And I love that about them. I love those characters. I don't have any critiques for the characters. They have been a highlight of this year for me, just the characters alone. So I'm gonna give them obviously a 5 out of 5 because they made, like, I'm smiling like this because the book was that good. Okay, so let's move on to the plot. The plot of the story, the book is this big, so there's a lot of plot. Description. Okay, I'm so bad at this that I'm about to just read to you what it says on Goodreads because Adrielle doesn't know what's going on. Like, I don't know how to describe this book is about because it's so much, Okay, basically, we're just gonna pull it up right here. Roshar is a world, I'm getting this off Goodreads. Roshar is a world of stone and storms. Uncanny tempests of incredible power sweep across the rocky terrain so frequently that they have shaped ecology and civilization alike. Animals hide in shells, trees pull in branches, and grass retracts into the soilless ground. Cities are built only where the topography offers shelter. It has been centuries since the fall of the 10 consecrated orders known as the Knights Radiant, but their shard blades and shard plate remain, mystical swords and suits of armor that transform ordinary men into near-invincible warriors. Men trade kingdoms for shard blades, wars were fought for them and won by them. One such war rages on a ruined landscape called the Shattered Plains. There, Kaladin, who traded his medical apprenticeship for a spear to protect his little brother, has been reduced to slavery. In a war that makes no sense, where 10 armies fight separately against a single foe, he struggles to save his men and to fathom leaders who consider them expendable. Bright Lord Dalinar Colin, at least I think it's pronounced Colin, commands one of those other armies. Like his brother, the late king, who was murdered 7 years before the book begins. He is fascinated by an ancient text called The Way of Kings. Troubled by overpowering visions of ancient times and the Knights Radiant, he has begun to doubt his own sanity. Across the ocean, an untried young woman named Shalyn seeks to train under an eminent scholar and notorious heretic, Dalinar's niece, Yasna. Though she genuinely loves learning, Shallan's motives are less than pure. As she plans a daring theft, her research for Yasna hints at secrets of the Knights Radiant and the true cause of the war. So now you see why I couldn't find a proper explanation for that. There's so much going on. I'm sorry. And the plot is very, very detailed. Like, it's scary detailed. There's like these little interlude sections where it deviates kind of from the main plot, which I think was my only problem with that. But if you know my type of reading that I like, you know I like really complex, really well, complex simply because it's like admirable to admire. Like, oh man, somebody really sat down and like came up with all this. Like, it's just impressive. I really like that. Really complex, like just really thought out plot and setting and that kind of stuff like that. So I'm not gonna give this a 5 because it did deviate from the plot. Like, there were some sections that I still don't know why they were in there, and they just felt like the book was already big enough. Like, some of that might not have needed to be in there. Just some of the plot just kind of, it deviated to different characters who we only heard from once, and like we just never saw them again. And I guess maybe it'll start to make sense as I keep reading, but right, like, that was a no for me. So this gets a 4 out of 5 instead of a 5, just because of that, because it was a little confusing here and there, because the plot was like that. This is the plot of that book, even though it was like a controlled chaos for the most part. Let's move on to the setting. The setting takes place in Roshar, which is a place that has its own, like, plants in Roshar are their own. Like, they didn't come from this world. The dirt is its own. Like, it's it's a fantasy grass, you guys. Fantasy rocks and animals, and I've never seen this much care. Well, I take that back. I've read a lot of fantasy. I seldom see this much care and time, and everything just felt so real. Everything was so detailed and plotted out. Like, when I tell you guys that there was a type of fantasy grass, they're fantasy animals. I mean, we've seen that before, but like fantasy grass, like, it was impressive. Like, just everything from the clothes they wore to the grass, the dirt, the weather patterns, the earth itself just was entirely, the geographic setup was just so mind-bogglingly wide in scale. It's huge. The book is big, but the world is so much bigger. Like, we didn't even scrape the surface of all of the world building that book has to offer, like that series has to offer. I'm so excited going forward to read about other places and other cultures. There's so many cool cultures in this book that only get hinted at for a second, and I'm like, you could write an entire book about that. Like, it's so deep. It's like, I can't even fathom. So obviously I'm gonna give this a 5 out of 5 because I'm just raving about it right now. All right, so now let's move on to the final thing in this video, and that is pacing. For pacing, I feel like with pacing, I'm very hard on books. With characters, because they're my favorite part of a book, and then with pacing, because pacing, as a writer myself, I say that all the time, but I just have to put that out there for people who don't know that. As a writer myself, pacing can make or break a story. You can have a really good thing going, but if it's going too fast, it kills it. If it's going too slow, it kills it, because no one's going to want to read to get to that part if the boring part is this long. And if the exciting part is this long and the rest of it, the boring, is this long, the pacing is bad. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've written something and it's like, not bad, but like, it's going too fast or it's going too slow. Like that is a really big milkshake break. That is a really big deterrent, like, from people who want to read it. But one thing I will say about this book is that the pacing was pretty stellar. For a book that big, and the way books are that big is that they take their time. Well, part of why books can be that big is because they take their time getting into it. They don't feel like they have to, there are very few rushed scenes, if any, because the author is just really taking their time getting everything established. Like, he had a lot of rooms to do all that world building and character development and plot and all that kind of stuff. So he took his time. Brandon Sanderson took his time on the plot and the pacing and everything like that. However, I feel like while there were never, I'm like, it's been a while since I read a book that had like no boring parts. So there were no parts where I was just like, okay, yawn, like, when's this scene gonna end? Nothing like that. There were just some parts in there that they took a long time to get going, if that makes any sense. And I just said like, oh, he had time. Yeah, but it was some things in there, I can't say it because it's spoiler free, but some things in there just took too much time, in my opinion, that kind of slowed the plot, or yeah, slowed the story down to a point that I didn't feel like it needed to go that slow sometimes. And then some parts at the end, I want to say, were uncharacteristically fast, like just because it was at the end. Which I understand the end is when it starts to like roll, but some parts are just like oddly fast next to the slow pace that the book takes, if you know what I'm saying. So I'm gonna give it a 4 for pacing instead of a 5. But that is still a crazy score, because when I averaged it all together, I got a 4.5, you guys. 4.5. That is so high. I've like, I love that book, and I'm probably still gonna give it a 5-star on Goodreads. So personally, I'm gonna say 5, even though my rating thing said 4.5. I'm just gonna give it another a little boost to a 5-star. I enjoyed this so much. Like, if you haven't read this book and you're into fantasy, don't be intimidated by the size, because it is so good. It's so worth it. And also, it's rewarding when you do finish it, because it's like, I just read 1,007 pages. Like, yes. So when you do finish it, it's a really good time. But there was a section in the middle where I was like, I don't ever want this to end. And lucky for me, the next books in the series are even bigger than that one, so I get to just have a good time. Like, I'm so glad. This is gonna be one of my favorites of the year. I can tell already in March. So I'm gonna end the video there. I'll see you guys next time, and goodbye.